Ready.
Good morning, The Grove.
Good
Come on
morning.
in, find a spot. Glad to be with you today. And those of you online, hello. Glad to have you with us as well. We'll start this morning by singing together, and this is a song that's like a modern reflection and interpretation of the Lord's Prayer. So sing along as you feel comfortable. Your told me that you are strong and you love me. And you love me. Your love is, your love is, your love is strong. Your love is, your love is, your love is strong. And our God in heaven, hallowed be thy name above all names. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us weary sinners, and keep us far from our vices, and deliver us from these prisons. Your love is strong. Sing your love. Your love is, your love is, your love is strong. Your love is, your love is, your love is strong.
Well, good morning. Oh, that was a long one. It's so good to be with you on this blustery but beautiful October Sunday morning. My name's Jeremy, and I'm the pastor here of the Grove Cottage Grove, and we are a new church that exists to grow goodness. And so my hope is that you're being in the room with us today, you're watching at home, you're interacting with us out in the community, or maybe even on our property with big events like we had yesterday, is somehow nurturing healing, wholeness, and your beauty just through those interactions. Just want to quickly turn your attention to a couple things this morning. Hopefully you received one of the worship handouts when you walked in. On the inside, on the right-hand side, there's information about kids. We try to hit that information up quick because kids are really important here, and the information about what we provide for kids, because they're really important, is also important. So we have stuff in the worship center for kids to be able to do, to remain in the worship center. We have the quiet wiggle space on the side for kids to be able to move their bodies if they're not comfortable just sitting down. We also have stuff in the backs of the pews for them to be able to do, coloring sheets and such. We also have programming for kids. We have our Grove Nursery, which is available out in the Commons area for ages 3 years and under. And then we have Grove Kids for 4 years through 5th grade. You can see all of the information there or read it on the inside of the worship handout. The only thing that we ask is that if this is their first time this fall being a part of either of those programs, that you make sure to fill out the registration. There's either a card on the back table or you can scan this QR code. One, so that we can know who they are, but secondly, if there's anything that we need to know about allergies or other medical issues to make sure that they are getting what they need. So with all of those things out of the way up front, we now get to turn to the part of the service that we call Connection Points. This is your opportunity to connect with the people around you. That's a really important thing as a church, especially as a newer church where a lot of us are new at this. And to lower the anxiety level a little bit, we provide a discussion question. So when you're interacting with someone, you don't have to come up with your own stuff. We, at the very least, if you have no idea what to talk to this stranger about, have one thing that you can talk to this stranger about. So in just a moment, I'll ask you to stand, find someone you don't know or don't know very well, introduce yourself. And then today's question, we're wrapping up our series called God's Math today, and we're talking about values, okay? And so the question for today is, what's something you find value in that others might not understand? That's something you like find a lot of worth in. Maybe it's an activity that you participate in that feels weird to a lot of outsiders, but you really enjoy it. Or maybe it is like a physical thing that you find high value in. Maybe you're a coin collector. And if you showed me a coin, I'm like, I have no idea what's different about this coin than the coin that I just picked up out of my couch cushion. But it's I don't know. I don't know anything about coins, but you know the thing about coins, and you know how valuable that is. Does the question make sense? If it doesn't make sense, you're welcome to talk about whatever you want. Okay. So why don't you stand up, find someone near you don't know very well, introduce yourself, discuss this question or anything else, and we'll reconvene in a couple minutes.
find your way back to your seats. And kiddos we'll sing you out to Grove Kids. Jesus loves the little children, woo! All the children of the world. Every color, shape, and type, they are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. Woo! Yeehaw! Y'all, I could really hear you singing that time, so the band created some magic that made y'all sing more, and I love that. Thank you, band. Thank you, people.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I got it too. All right. My name is Jordan. I'm one of the worship leaders here at the Grove. I'd like to bring your attention back to the handout that was given to you on your way in. On the inside, there's lots of great information in here, like Jeremy was telling you before. There's a little insert. This insert is your opportunity to give us your information so that we can get information out to you. So if you want to put all of your information on the front side, and then on the back, there's lots of boxes. You can check those boxes to find out more information about those specific things. If you're online, there should be a link posted that you can follow later to check in as well. And then also in here, there's lots of great information on giving. Giving is a great opportunity to give to our community so that we can continue to grow goodness and do things like the pumpkin patch and build community here at the Grove.
It's a good thing that you were up first, because I was back there closing the door and had to run up here. Okay. Catching my breath. If you turn to the back, we have our 3 announcements that we have been keying in on, not just this month, but since we started indoor worship again back in September. The first thing is around our stewardship campaign. 3 times a year, we come to you with 3 different campaigns that we're trying to raise funds for. The first one happens in the spring leading up to Easter. That's our Being the Hope campaign, which is around supporting ministries that are outside of the local church. The second one happens in June going into July a little bit, which is our property improvement campaign, where we're raising funds to be able to replace certain things or improve our property in ways that are outside of the bounds of our normal operating budget. The third one, which we're in the heat of right now, nearing the end of, is our stewardship campaign. And our stewardship campaign in some ways is the most boring and also the most important. Because the stewardship campaign allows us as a church to be able to plan the year ahead and how we are going to do ministry day in and day out, week after week in the year ahead. And for you as individuals who consider this to be your church home, to also plan for yourself financially how you are able to help to contribute to making that happen. So we have had 4 goals that we have been holding out here over the last 6 weeks. And the 4 goals are, with updates, we've been looking for 40 pledges total, 40 households pledging, and so far, with this being the last week to get your pledges in, we have 17, okay? Good start. We still have a ways to go, but we have an opportunity to grow into it. We have 4 new pledges out of the hope for 10. We have 7 that have said, this is a year where I feel like I can increase my pledge and commitment to the church in the year ahead. And then we have 4 new households that have set up online giving. I will note, especially when it comes to the total pledges, last year we had 32 households, and we have 7, that number is actually 17 because 1 came in this morning. So that means that even just the households that pledged last year, we've got room to grow, folks, and you have a year to be able to do, or a week to be able to do that. Regardless, these are really exciting things to be able to celebrate the commitment to this church and to growing goodness. So if you have not yet made your pledge and you consider the Grove, Cottage Grove, to be your church home, I'd encourage you to check that out today or this week and hopefully make a pledge as well. You can scan that QR code and do that online. The second thing is around the pop-up pumpkin patch, which happened yesterday. The pop-up pumpkin patch is our biggest event of the year, and yesterday we opened up our property and handed out hundreds of free pumpkins and had all sorts of events that were being put on by activities that were being put on by community partners. We lost count because at some point you can't count all of the people that are coming on the property from all the different angles. To the best of our knowledge, we had more than 2,000 people here yesterday. Woohoo, big deal, right? We had 2 tables that were sitting right next to each other. Royanne was selling baked goods, and then we had some of our Grove kids that were selling their own baked goods as well, with all of that money going towards tree planting to replace those beautiful trees that we lost in August. And I am happy to report that between those 2 tables, we raised over $900. Big deal. Two more things. We do have some pumpkins left. So if you are interested after the service in some free pumpkins, they're out that way, okay? I cannot guarantee their condition overnight based on the squirrels on this property, but if you want to take a look at any pumpkins that are out there, and you're welcome to take as many as you'd like, feel free after the service to go out there and check them out. The last thing that I want to do is I want to acknowledge everyone who made yesterday possible. So if you were on the planning team, if you were a volunteer for the event, or if you were somehow involved in it through having a table or something, could you stand up so we can acknowledge you? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can tell you that we are already talking about next year's event, believe it or not. The last thing is around Grove groups. If you are looking for meaningful relationships and a way to connect with people in this church outside of a Sunday morning, it's really hard to connect and build those meaningful relationships outside of a Sunday morning. Grove groups are the best way for you to do that. And they take on different forms. They can look a little bit more like a traditional small group or Bible study, but they can also look like we're talking about a Pokemon interest group. We're talking about a crafter interest group. Anything that can bring people together around a shared activity or shared interest where you can build meaningful relationships, we're interested in launching groups in that capacity. So if you have any interest in that, you can go to that website, scan that QR code, read more, you can sign up, and then if you have interest in something that you think other people are interested in as well, talk to me afterwards, because there's a good chance that we could form a group that helps to connect those needs. Okay. I think that's it. Back to Katie.
Jeremy, you actually have to stay here because I'm going to bother you for a second. Get back here. Sneaky, sneaky. If you don't know, it's Pastor Appreciation Month. Ha-ha. I wish Chelsea were in here too, but, oh, yes! Ah-ha-ha, you're not off the hook either. Yeah. I don't believe Chelsea's title has the word pastor in it, but Chelsea is also absolutely a pastor to our children. And I don't know if other moms and parents feel this way, but she pastors me as a parent too, I think. So thank you. You guys are very, very loved here and very appreciated. So here's a handful of partners contributed to some gifts for you all in there. And another thing, a more tangible gift. So I didn't lie. We are doing the prayer for the trees today. But if you remember, after our trees fell down, Jeremy wrote this amazing prayer reflection thing and read it in worship. And I was like, dude, that needs to live on the walls of our church. So I got it made. Among the many things you are good at, writing is one of them, and this will be really cool for us to, I'm hoping we can put it out by the back door maybe, so that's closest to where we lost our trees. And if you can't see, there's some line art here where it's two hands coming together and they're holding a little seedling up together. So you can escape now if you want. Do you want to read this or do you want me to read it? You wrote it, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Jeremy, read it.
Do I have to read it like this?
Sure, if you want to.
No, that's okay.
I thought that way, if anybody missed it, we can hear it again and continue to remember our trees.
All right. So, this is quite fitting given that we are talking about raising this money to be planting trees to replace these ones that came down. So this is a prayer for the trees. They were just trees, they said to the people called the Grove. Just trees. These trees were creations older than living memory. While they could not speak to us, they could speak to one another. Imagine what they bore witness to and what they spoke to one another. They witnessed a farmstead come and go. They witnessed churches come and go. They've witnessed births and deaths, celebrations and sorrows. Birds and squirrels and insects called them home. Those insects are finding a different home, I'll tell you that much. We've been learning. Babies and children and adults were baptized under their branches. Children climbed their trunks and rested on their limbs. Our conversations, our prayers, our singing were all inhaled, metabolized, and exhaled back to us in kind. As the landscape and the community and the people grew and changed around them, they stood as keepers of the stories and keepers of the faith. They created shade for the weary, rest for the tired, and safety for the vulnerable. Their roots allowed faith to take root, not shallow and short-lived, but vibrant and resilient. The irony, of course, is that their roots did not hold, and their strength did not last. But that does not mean that they failed. They preserved their own lives, yes, but the lives of those in their understory. They were just trees, they said to the people called the Grove, but we know better, and we are thankful for what they are and all they have given us. So what's next? Planting. We are, after all, people who grow goodness, even and especially when things look bleak. Amen. I'll leave that down.
We all rise. I want to share a new song with you, one that very much speaks to our trees and all they represent, that sometimes harsh endings lead to new beginnings. The song is called Behold.
The empty fill, the wounded heal, the broken back together. The poor are blessed, the weary rest. We will dance forever. The blinded see, the chained are free, the doubtful now believer. The outcast known, the orphan home, you are my Redeemer. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. The lost return, the voiceless heard, the mourner now rejoicing. The mountains shake, the world awake, creation all composing. The sad untrue, the earth renewed, the song has found its singer. The darkness light, the dead alive, you are my Redeemer. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. He's making all things new. Church, oh Church of God, united to serve one common Lord, proclaim to all one message with hearts in glad accord. Christ ever goes before us, we follow day by day with strong and eager footsteps along the upward way. Though creeds and tongues may differ, they speak, O Christ of thee, and in thy loving spirit we shall one people be. Lord, may our faithful service and singleness of name proclaim to all the power of thy redeeming name. May thy great prayer be answered, that we may all be one, close bound by love, united in thee, God's blessed Son, to bring a single witness, to make the pathway bright, that souls which grope in darkness may find the one true light. Amen. You can have a seat.
Well, as I mentioned before, we are in the last week of this series that we've been calling God's Math. And we've been saying God's math is kingdom arithmetic, by which we grow in love of God and neighbor, help to heal a broken world, and reach new people. And I got to be honest, I'm happy that this series is ending. I've asked multiple times over the last couple weeks, like, who likes math? I'm not one of those people. You'll notice I have not raised my hand. Math is not something that I necessarily enjoy. I did fine in math, but it was not something that I did great in, nor that I really enjoyed. And so 6 weeks of trying to talk about math and God's math and how that relates to money and giving, like relentlessly over 6 weeks. I would rather do like we did in August when we did our campfire stories, where we talked about stories of child sacrifice in the book of Revelation. Like, that feels more comfortable to me than talking for 6 weeks about math and money and giving. And I was reminded of this week, and like I found this image that perfectly fit with my feelings about math and my excitement for this series to come to an end. Are any of you familiar with the cartoonist Nathan Pyle or Strange Planet? Anybody? Okay, so if you're not, it's okay. Strange Planet, Nathan Pyle is a comic He writes comics, designs comics, however you talk about that. He makes this web comic called Strange Planet. And they're very short web comics. And the point is, like, he's recreating everyday interactions that we might have as humans, but the beings that are having these interactions are actually aliens. And so it's almost in like alien talk by which they're having these conversations. And he posted one this week about math that just like hit hard. Okay, here it is for you. I'm going to read it with you. Okay, so we've got a parent and a child. Are you able to assist me with arithmetic? Can you help me with math, right? The answer is unknown. I don't know, kid. I feel sadness and lack of understanding. We can feel that together, says the parent. The kid then says, did you complete this course? And the parent says, many revolutions ago, many years ago, I did this work. And the bottom one, are the memories of the course returning? So far, only the emotions. This one, like, hits me. This is me, right? One thing, too, that this, like, ushered me back to is in the heat of the pandemic, we chose for that first full school year, we chose to homeschool our second grader. I don't know that we would have done it differently, but we will never do it again if we ever have a pandemic. And math was the worst one. Math was absolutely the worst subject to try to cover with our second grader. We had so many of those types of emotions as we were trying to remember back to these times when we had these courses. In the midst of a global pandemic, when this virus is spreading all over the place, math was like the worst part of that year. However, it's important sometimes to remember that difficult things can be good, right? It was a difficult time for us to have to get through that with our second grader, but it was good for us and for her to get through that together, for her to learn those things. And it has been difficult over these last 6 weeks to talk about God's math, to talk about giving and all of that, and yet it can be good and productive and helpful and important even. So hopefully over the course of these 6 weeks, and as we are wrapping this up today, hopefully it has accomplished, if nothing else, helping us to understand how we as individuals and as a church, again, can grow in love of God and neighbor, help to heal a broken world, and reach new people. So just as a reminder, as we wrap up today, what those 6 things or 5 things up until today have been. We talked about addition being the idea that we grow as individuals and we grow as a church through one-to-one interactions. It happens slowly over time. You can't rush it. Then we talked about subtraction, the idea that sometimes a positive can come from us being humble and sacrificing something of ourselves to give to the greater good. Then we talked about division, the idea that we can do a whole lot together when we divide the work amongst ourselves. Each of us picks up what we can. Then we talked about multiplication, how things can actually grow exponentially. We can acknowledge what we have and what we have been given and use that as an opportunity to pay it forward. And then last week, you might remember we talked about calculus, this idea of being able to lay out all of the variables on the table and say, there are things that we can do to interact or to impact something positive going forward. And so how can we do those things to make a positive impact going forward, again, as individuals and as a church? Finally, today, we are talking about values. Now, like we did with division, I need to just give a caveat that we're not talking about what we would usually talk about when we're talking about values. Like, our values as a church are this, the things by which we live. The values that we're talking about today are like math values. So math values are, they're help to determine the true worth of a number or a variable. Make sense? Maybe? Yeah? Thank you, Mira. I'm gonna give 2 examples, okay? 2 examples. The first one, we need to, in this number, find what the value of the number 2 is. Okay? Come on, hold on. The teacher. Okay, so we need to figure out what the value of the 2 is. Would you like to come up here? No. So what is the value of the 2? Now, when you're determining a value in math, there's a face value and a place value. Okay? So the face value of the 2 is, it's a 2, right? But the value, like the worth of that 2 is not just the 2. That's the face value, but then there's also the place value. So in this number, 12,473, the 2 is in the 1,000th place, which means you take the face value and you multiply it by the place value, and you get 2,000. There you go. So the value of this 2 in this number is 2,000. It's not 2, it's not 1,000, it's 2,000. Okay, example number 2. I see your eyes glazing over. Example number 2, figuring out the value of a variable. So we now have the x. So we have to figure out what the value of that x is. So in order to figure out the value of that x, you can subtract. You have 143. You can subtract 3. That gets you to 140. And then you divide it by 14, which is what? 10. Okay, so the value of that is not x. The value of that x is 10. That's the real worth of that variable. How many of you are having those feelings? Do any of you have the sadness and lack of understanding from many revolutions ago? Yes. Okay. And you're probably wondering, what on earth does this have to do with church and following Jesus, right? Well, these things don't actually have a whole lot to do with it. However, Jesus was constantly trying to help people to figure out what is the actual value of a thing? What is the actual value and meaning of a thing or a person? And then how do you respond accordingly once you come to fully understand the value of a thing or a person? And the way that he often did this was in stories. And so he told these stories in order to help people understand the value and then to respond accordingly. So today we're going to look at 2 really short stories from the Gospel according to Luke, one of the 4 biographies about the life of Jesus, and here they are. It's talking about the kingdom of heaven. In the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field that a person found and hid. Then, because of joy, he went and sold all he had and bought that field. Story number 1. Story number 2, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls. When he found a pearl of great value, he went out and sold everything he had and bought it. So again, Jesus is sharing these parables. Parables are a type of story often used in the ancient world that are stories about normal, everyday types of things and occurrences, but they're used to tell a deeper spiritual truth and using familiar things in order to get to that deeper spiritual truth. He told these types of stories to everybody. And at this point in his teaching and preaching career, he's gathering lots of crowds. However, at this point, right before we get these stories, he's actually pulled back from the crowds, and he's now talking exclusively to his closest followers. They were listening to what he was saying to the crowds, and they had these clarifying questions, and he realized, I need to pull back, and I need to give them a deeper understanding of what I'm talking about, because they have buy-in here. And in order for them to know what to do with this stuff, we need to pull it back and give a deeper understanding so that they know what is going to be expected of them, specifically as those who are most committed to this thing. And this thing is the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of God, which I like to talk about as God's dream for the world. What are the things that they need to know about God's dream for the world? And if they understand that, what are then going to be the expectations of them? So he tells these 2 stories, these 2 parables, and what he does in them, he doesn't share equations with them, but he does lay out there's face value, there's place value, there's ways of using the face and place value to determine worth, and then there's a way of acting in response to how you determine what the worth is. Okay? First story is about a piece of land. So someone goes and finds a piece of land with treasure on it. The way I would like you to think about it is comparing two potential pieces of land that someone could purchase. So I want you to think about like an oceanfront property and then a desert. At face value, I think most of us, unless it's in the way of a hurricane, would look at oceanfront property and say, on its face, that property is going to be much more valuable than a piece of property, maybe even the same size or larger in a desert. Can we agree on that? That's probably the case on its face. But it's not just about face value. There's place value as well. Pieces of land are worth more depending on not only where they're at, but like what's on them. So this picture, does anybody know what this picture is of? Okay, so it is of an oil field. Our resident Texan is not here, so I was gonna put it on him. This is a picture of the Permian Basin. If you look closely, those little squares or those shapes, each of those has like an oil rig on it. So this is like West Texas, basically middle of the desert, but it is by far the most valuable oil field in all of the United States. So you could say, on face, oceanfront property or desert, which has more value? Oceanfront property, but there's place value too. It matters what is happening on that place. And so, if you were to get a plot of land in the Permian Basin, that's going to be worth way more than an oceanfront property, right? Because it matters what's happening on the ground and under the ground. So this guy comes in, he finds this piece of treasure on a piece of land. We don't know what the face value of it might be, but he understands the place value of it. And it is clear to him that he's willing to sell everything in order to get that piece of land. He understands the value, he understands the inherent worth, and it doesn't matter what any outsider thinks. It doesn't matter what any outsider who doesn't understand the true value thinks about how crazy he is for selling everything. When he looks at this transaction, he does not in any way see this as a sacrifice because he knows the value and it's worth giving everything to. That's story number one. Second story, it's a little bit more baked in, the inherent worth of this thing, but this story is about a pearl. So there is a merchant who's going in search of valuable pearls, or a pearl even of great worth. Does anybody know anything about pearls? Okay, I don't either. This guy did. This guy knew exactly what he was looking for. He was on a hunt for a pearl of great worth. I have no idea what a pearl of great worth is like. So, of course, I Googled it. What are you looking for when you're looking for a pearl of great worth? What are the things that you're taking into account? You're looking at the size. The larger the pearl, the better, right? The more valuable it is. You're looking at the shape. The rounder it is, the better. You're looking at the color. The color is actually a little bit more subjective, apparently. People with different skin tones like the different pearl colors. The luster, and then the surface. Is it porous or is it nice and smooth? So again, we have no idea. The only reason I know this is because I Googled it this week. I have no idea what would be a valuable pearl, but he does. He goes out looking for a pearl of great worth, and he finds it, and it blows away, exceeds all of his expectations. And what is he willing to do? He takes everything he owns and sells it in order to buy this one pearl, which, if you don't know anything about a pearl, makes no sense whatsoever, but he does. He knows both the face value and the place value of this pearl. He knows how much it is worth, and because of that, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice at all to give up absolutely everything in order to get this pearl. So as he tells these two stories, I imagine that Jesus has this inherent question that he is asking to his followers. If you knew the true value of the kingdom of heaven, if you knew the true value of God's dream for the world, what would you not be willing to give up? Because if you knew its true worth, whatever you gave up would be no sacrifice at all. So let's talk about the church. I want to note that the church is not the kingdom of God. It is not the kingdom of heaven. There's lots of people who might say that, and it gets into really messy territory really quickly. I think it's important to note that the church, local church, or the church globally, is not the kingdom. And I think it's a mistake to say it's not directly connected to God's dream for the world. I try to look at more voices, bring more people in than just what many pastors do, just looking to old dead white guys. However, some old dead white guys still have some really good things to say. So one of my favorite old dead white guys is a guy who was named Leslie Newbigin. Here's a picture of Leslie Newbigin. Leslie Newbigin was a bishop and missionary to India. And he had a lot of critiques about the Western church. And one of the things that he critiqued about the Western church was that the Western church largely existed for itself, to grow big, to establish itself, to build up its own kingdom, right? He said the church is not the kingdom. It is not the kingdom of God. It is not the God's dream for the world become real. However, the church, if it's doing its job, is a sign, it is an instrument, it is a foretaste of what the kingdom is like. So if you're out and about and you're trying to figure out what is God's dream for the world, you should be able to look to the church that is saying, if you want a taste of what that looks like, what God's dream looks like, it's kind of being enacted right here. So with that in mind, as we're talking about value, my question is, what is the value of the church? We could look at face value. Now let's talk specifically about the Grove Cottage Grove. There's a face value. All these things that you can see, right? We have a building, and we have this beautiful building that needs lights and it needs heat. We have this property that needs taken care of, and a parking lot that needs to be plowed and to be weeded. We have computers, and we have a printer and printer ink. Face value, right? We have a website. We have email addresses. We have a Microsoft 365 subscription. Yeah. We have paid staff with salaries and benefits, right? These are the face value things of a church. However, we don't just want to talk about face value, right? We need to talk about place value, because it is the place value that actually speaks to the true worth of the thing. So I now want to talk about the other values that we say we want to live by as a church. We exist to grow goodness. And what that looks like, our values are to nurture healing, wholeness, and beauty, to expand our circle of inclusion, to cultivate the common good, and to deepen our curiosity and sense of awe. Those are like the felt experiences that we want and we want to provide to others that creates that place value that happens in the context of the face value. With that in mind, I think Jesus' question comes to us as well. If you knew the true value of God's dream for the world, that is enacted and felt and is made tangible by the church, what would you not give? Because whatever you are able to give, if you knew the true value, is no sacrifice at all. If you have ears to hear that, rhetorical question, my then rhetorical question is also, what is one way? If you understand the true value, what is one way that you can then act accordingly? Over the last 6 weeks, we've talked about addition and subtraction and division and multiplication and calculus, and today values, these ways of being able to grow in love of God and neighbor, to help heal a broken world, and to reach new people. And so my hope for us is that we can lean into those values, understanding the worth of this thing that we are all a part of, and to add even more value ourselves. May that be so.
Sing together one more time.
Only good will grow. Now knows only afterglow. Never contain for this place. Hallowed ground. Nothing is forsaken now. Only good will grow. Only light will shine on the sacred garden. Every season new life. Death is long departed. I'll plant you a tree. Roots have wings. Your children will forever sing. Only good will grow. Only good will grow. The joy and the pain, times they change, but the ties that will bind us remain. Only good will grow. But the ties that will bind us remain. Only good will grow. Only good will grow.
I'm actually going to have you take a seat, okay? Two quick things, a little bit longer than typical, which is why I let you take a seat. Two quick things. Number one is, yes, we're wrapping up our stewardship campaign. If you have not yet made a pledge and you consider this to be your church home, I hope that you will spend the next week doing some of that thought for yourself about what you might be able to contribute. We're going to announce all of those final numbers next week, and then we're going to be done talking about it. Okay? I promise you. Next week brings something new, though, and it's actually connected to something that we as people who are committed to the Grove, Cottage Grove, have been talking about for about 10 months. You may have known that we have been growing. And in math terms, we've been adding a lot over our first 2.5+ years as a church. And addition is great, but at some point, addition can be too much, even if it grows slowly over time. And one of the things that you might be noticing is some of these walls that a few years ago felt really big are starting to close in a bit. Yeah. And so now what we need to talk about is, in order to continue to grow and to grow goodness, and more importantly, to be able to create room for the people who are hopefully arriving next, is not just to add, but to multiply. So beginning on December 8th, we will be adding a second service. What this means, so we have 7 weeks until that. There are a lot of details that need to be covered between now and then. We will be rolling out those details. Some of those details we have, many of those details we don't have, and we will be kind of bringing you along and including them as we have them and as is necessary to bring them to you. One of the things that we know absolutely is that this is going to require all of us to be able to pull off, okay? And so, starting next week, we're beginning a new worship series called Stepping in It. Stepping in It is going to be looking at the book of Acts, when Jesus leaves his followers and hands over the mission to them, and they kind of have to take things up from there. And repeatedly, they go out and try to do the things that he did, and they screw it up, and they step in it. And it's not great. It's not great in many respects, but they don't give up. What they instead do is say, all right, we're failing forward, and we're going to figure out how to do this better going forward. And it's only because they're willing to step in and do this new thing that all of this becomes possible, to the point where 2,000 years later and half the world away, we are here today. Okay? Because those people 2,000 years ago and half a world away were willing to step in it in order to step into this thing that they were being called to do. So what is this? This is going to require of us. We're going to be talking about over the next 6 weeks. We're going to have people from each of our ministry teams coming up and talking about their own experience and how you might be able to get involved. This is going to be a learning opportunity that is going to include lots of fun things and lots of challenging things, but I know absolutely, given what we have created in this community over the last 2.5 years, that we have this within us, and we're going to be ready to do this by December 8th, okay? If you have more questions, when you have them, bring them to me. With that in mind, I will now have you stand and extend your hands as you are able to receive this blessing. As we go, may we recognize the true value of this thing we're all a part of. And may we respond accordingly, knowing that anything we can give is no sacrifice at all. May that be so. Amen.
Trees clap their hands for you. Oceans they dance for you. Heaven taunts the hearts of men. We can feel it from within. The beauty of it all, the mystery, the swelling of a voice, a rising sea. Holy, ah, behold the holy. Trees clap their hands for you. Oceans they dance for you. You are holy, infinite and holy. A billion suns rise for you. Clouds paint the skies for you. Mountains stand tall for you. Valleys bow down to you. Everything rises to you. Sing all our songs to you.
Holy, the impossible and holy. Kings become fools for you, kingdoms to ruins for you. Vapor finds ground in you, music finds sound in you. Everything rising, everything rising, everything rising, everything rising. 2, 3. When you wake up in the morning, do you ever say thank you to God? It's easy to be worried, but it feels way better when you are not. Think about the way that the sun comes into your heart. It brightens up the window and it brightens up some of your thoughts. We don't have to be sure of everything to give thanks, just to notice the kindness as we go on our way. We all know the pain of living every day, but watch the world change colors when we give thanks. Who's that causing all the drama?